right. So, thinking about your lesson preparation, some of the questions that I thought we might talk about today. Which foundational skills, with this lesson specifically, which foundational skills are you explicitly teaching, and what will we practice in this lesson?
Okay, so this is Unit 9. We're on Skills 9. This is going to be Lesson 7. And what's so great about CKLA program is that it tells you exactly what the primary focus of the lesson is. So today, what we'll be teaching, and you'll get to see it in just a little bit, is kids are going to be orally blending words with up to 7 phonemes. So I do sometimes change a little bit of what the lesson asks for. I will do it the way they say it, and then I just kind of change it up so the kids have a little bit more practice with it, so you'll see that. We're also going to be naming the lowercase letters, and they're going to be providing sounds. That's something that we do every single day since the very first time that we started this. We're also going to review tricky words. We're going to work on 2 new words today. They're going to recognize, name, and write the letters N, O, P, Q, and R, and then they're going to be answering some yes/no questions in their workbook. So all of the standards are right there listed in the manual.
Wonderful, wonderful. So, just in preparation, how will you articulate the lesson objective to students? How will they know?
So I will begin the lesson just letting them know what we're going to do. This program is so systematic that really and truly the kids really know what's coming in the lesson. Like, we do the same things pretty much every day. So I will just say in kids' terms, we're going to review the sounds, or we're going to talk about some new tricky words or things like that. So I will just try to make it as easy for them to understand as possible, and then we'll roll on with the lesson.
Awesome. How will you explain the skill? Well, we kind of talked about that in student-friendly terms, and how will you ensure that students are engaged in this model?
So engagement is super important, especially in kindergarten. It is a lengthy lesson, so I really try to make each lesson hands-on. A lot of times, if the lesson will call for just kids like maybe verbally giving me an answer, I might incorporate boogie boards. So instead of just verbally giving me an answer, they can always also be writing the answer. So I think that making it hands-on, more kinesthetic, it really pulls the kids in to learn and to want to be engaged in the lesson.
Right, definitely.
Yeah.
Awesome. What might be tricky as you're teaching this lesson, or is there anything that you had to think about to make preparation for that might be tricky for you or even for the students?
Yes. So every day before I teach a lesson, I always read it in my lesson plan book. I don't ever teach a lesson without reviewing it myself. I have so many notes that are in my book, and one thing that I really work hard to review, learn the letter sounds and tricky words. The letter sounds, I think it's really important to know the correct sound, the correct mouth position before I teach it to the students, and also the tricky words, because in CKLA, we teach the kids that a tricky word is maybe some part decodable and some part tricky. So it's very important in my mind that I know what part of the word is tricky and what part is decodable, so that we really are specific, and I am specific, and I am intentional of telling them why that word is tricky, so they know the reason behind why it's a tricky word. Does that make sense? Yes. Yeah. So I kind of a little nerd. I look at it every night and I make notes, and
No, that's awesome.
and because I feel like the better that I know the lesson, the quicker that it will roll on, and the more we can get done, and the more the students will be engaged. There's no time lost in me trying to read it as we're moving along.
I love that.
Yeah.
Definitely. So, in helping students with that student practice and supporting them, how will students demonstrate their learning and mastery of the focus skills?
Okay, so there's lots and lots of formative teacher assessment throughout the unit. I'm going to be formatively assessing them as we are blending sounds. I can look around and see who has the correct number of fingers up, who is able to blend the sounds. I do the same as we flip through the sound cards and the letters. Same with the capital and lowercase letters that you'll see in the lesson. And then also when they're doing their workbook page today, I'm able to walk around and I'm actually able to look in real time, how they're doing with writing their letters, and if things need to be changed, we can do that right then at that time. I can also collect all of the workbook pages to use for, future reference. So those are the kinds of things that I think that's it. That's a lot of just teacher observation, but there's a lot that can be observed in the lesson.
Definitely,
Yes.
definitely. So thinking about the students, where might your students struggle? What are some appropriate supports that you might provide?
So I have a lot of different levels in the classroom. I have students that are considered cluster students, which means that they are reading on a first grade, second grade level. I've also got students that are EL learners that are struggling a little bit more with the language. So I have quite a bit of a gap in my students. And so I really try to be present. I try to walk around. I try to help when I can. And also, when it's time, for example, when we're reading stories, I always try to look at the students and make a good pair so that maybe a stronger reader is working with a not so strong reader, and then they can, kind of work together and work some things out. So I do know from all of the assessments that I do, who is struggling with blending, who is struggling still with segmenting. So I might, pause and do a little reteach mid-lesson if I need to do that. So there's so many different observations that I can be doing that it's really easy to pinpoint the students that are struggling and where I need to fill in those gaps for those students.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Awesome. Let's see. We kind of talked about it, the question asked, which students do I want to monitor closely? How will I support struggling students? And so that's we kind of touched on that. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
No.
Okay.
I also keep them in close proximity to me. Like I just keep them so I can up front so I can keep an eye on them. So that helps a little bit too.
Awesome. And then preparing the lesson materials. I know you talked about, reading your lesson the night before. Are there other materials that you'll need today?
Yeah, so this lesson is going to be chock full of good stuff. We have our tried and true sound cards that we use every single day. Also, we're going to play a headband game, so some capital letter cards. And we're also starting now to learn the capital letters. So I've started to do a letter fluency identification activity embedded in the lesson. It's not in the lesson, but it's something that we do every day for practice because our DIBELS test will be coming soon, and this will be one of the things that they're assessed on. Another thing that I have prepared are the sight word cards, the tricky words. We're going to learn 2 tricky words today. And, CKLA is just, it's intentional, it's specific, and it builds, and it builds, and it builds. So what we do today is not going to be anything new to our to the students because we do it so often. So they'll get one for here, one for home. They know the drill. So yeah, there's a lot of things, workbooks. We're going to incorporate boogie boards. Even though the lesson doesn't call for it specifically, we're going to put it in to get some of that writing practice and that kinesthetic learning in. And then, of course, just their workbooks at their table. So I think that's about it. Should be a good lesson.
Yes, ma'am. Is there anything else you'd like to share?
No, I think
Okay.
that's it.
Good
That's
deal.
it. All right. Thank
Thank you
you.
so much.